Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Hope you're all doing fine. If you're a fan of Plainsong, the band formed by Ian Matthews and Andy Roberts in the early 1970s, you may be aware of the writer Ian Clayton. His biography of Plainsong was published just last year, coinciding with the reissue of their material. But the book I'm here to talk about today is an earlier one called Bringing It All Back Home. It's an autobiography which weaves stories of his life and his love of music, and I think it's an exceptional piece of work. The UK music magazine Record Collector called it one of the best books about popular music ever written, and Mojo magazine described it as being full of wisdom and humanity. Reminiscences and thoughts about his life are presented in non-chronological fashion. The joy comes from reading about the people he meets along the way, and in particular his pride in the place where he was born and still lives. And that's Featherstone. It's a small town in West Yorkshire, famous for its rugby league club and also for its proud coal mining heritage. Sometimes he's laugh out loud funny, other times he's painfully honest. And there is one incident in particular, which I won't mention here, in the final chapter, which will just stop you in your tracks and may well bring you to tears. His political beliefs, most notably in connection with the miners' strike of 1984-85, won't resonate in the same way with everybody, but I suspect all readers will at least be able to appreciate his passion. The reason for his beliefs becomes clear when you read about a massacre that took place in his hometown of Featherstone back in September 1893. Soldiers from the South Staffordshire Infantry came to disperse a picket of the local pit by miners and their families. They refused to move, so the words of the Riot Act were then read out to them, and the soldiers were ordered to fire. Using Lee Mitford cartridges, which could kill at 1 mile range, they opened fire at point blank range and killed a miner, a Sunday school teacher, and badly wounded 20 others too. And to rub salt in the wound, the local paper, the Yorkshire Post, said in its report of the incident the next day, "Under trying circumstances, the shootings at Featherstone were a good scientific test for the new Lee Mitford cartridges." And a debate sometime after at Eton Public School concluded, "The people of Featherstone were a very rough set and deserved to be shot at. The only pity was that not more of them were taught a lesson." And during the 1984-85 miners' strike, the establishment was still inciting hatred. The Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, infamously described the miners and their families as the enemy within. Upon hearing this comment, Ian Clayton's grandfather, who'd fought for his country at El Alamein and Monte Cassino and served down the pit for more than 40 years, refused to watch the news ever again. There's one final touching scene that Ian Clayton recalls, and it's of when he invited the National Union of Miners leader Arthur Scargill to give a talk at Featherstone Working Men's Club on the massacre of 1893. Ian was worried because there was no sign of Arthur Scargill and he was due on stage in just a few minutes, so he went outside and found him sitting in his car. "Are you all right, Mr. Scargill?" he asked him. "Yes, I'm just psyching myself up. Have you heard this music?" He turned the sound up on the car cassette player and he was listening to Mefanwy by Test Department and the South Wales Striking Miners Choir. Tears were glistening in his eyes. He composed himself and strode into the club to cheers and applause and spoke for 2 hours on the lessons learned from the shooting. Occasionally I can find Ian Clayton to be a little too opinionated and intolerant when it comes to his musical tastes. For example, when he finds out that Joan Armour-Trading is a staunch Tory party supporter, he wants to obliterate a memory of sitting cross-legged and holding hands in a field at a Bob Dylan concert, singing along to Love and Affection. Mind you, if you've been called the enemy of the state by a Tory Prime Minister, it must be hard to get past political affiliations and just listen to the music. He also describes the Carpenters as his guilty as pleasure. Why he feels the need to refer to them as a guilty pleasure when Karen Carpenter had one of the greatest voices in popular music, I don't know. In a section of the book called For the Record, Collecting and Hoarding, he includes a chapter on 40 records you might want to take a journey to. It's an impeccably curated list of blues, country, jazz, American singer-songwriters, English folk and a smattering of world music. As you might expect, Yorkshire-related artists make 5 appearances in the top 40, including Norma Waterson, Richard Hawley and Chumbawamba. And I think the list serves as a good starting point to discover music that might be new to you. For example, I explored Iris Dement after reading this chapter, and I was hooked, and my enjoyment was tempered only by the knowledge that I'd never seen her live over the previous 30 years when she had regularly toured the UK. There's also a 3-page chapter on a visit to Hull East Cemetery to find the graves of Mick Ronson and Arthur Lucan, who played the character Old Mother Riley back in the 1930s, and it sums up all that is great about Ian Clayton's writing. He's able to recreate a moment in time with prose that is funny, moving, and ultimately joyful. It is indeed an extraordinary read.